Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yasodanandana Braja Jana Dandana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yasodanandana Braja Jana Dandana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava ki jai. Good morning. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 17, text 1 through 19. And the chapter title is Victory of Hiranyaksha over all the directions of the universe. So I'd like to take turns reading. And yeah, if you both have a mic ready, and Shantanu, you can start.
Sri Maitreya said, the demigods, the inhabitants of the higher planets, were freed from all fear upon hearing the cause of the darkness explained by Brahma, who was born from Vishnu. Thus, they all returned to their respective planets.
And this is the verse we're going to come back to. So we're going to be discussing fear today.
The virtuous lady Diti had been very apprehensive of trouble to the gods from the children in her womb, and her husband predicted the same. She brought forth twin sons after a full 100 years of pregnancy.
So one way to understand this too is that time is different on different levels, right? So the time for us here in this planet Earth is going to feel very long, but for the demigods it's very brief, right? So sometimes these numbers can seem very surprising. Okay, number 3.
Is it the third one?
Yeah.
Okay. On the birth of the two demons, there were many natural disturbances, all very painful and wonderful in the heavenly planets. the earthly planets and in between them.
There were earthquakes along the mountains on the earth, and it appeared that there was fire everywhere. Many inauspicious planets like Saturn appeared, along with comets, meteors, and thunderbolts.
Okay, so pause for a moment here. So in this purport, Prabhupada says that every time a demonic person is born, there's a natural disturbance somewhere on the planet. So I just Googled what the current natural disasters are around the world, like right now. And there are, hurricane. So there's floods, Philippines, Vietnam, Haiti, Sierra Leone, Yemen, United States, France, Colombia. Those are all those places are struggling with floods. There's tropical cyclones, Hurricane Melissa, tropical cyclone Chido, earthquakes in Turkey, Philippines, Afghanistan, wildfires in France and Bolivia, and drought in New Guinea, and cholera outbreak in Sudan. Okay, so that's right now today around the planet. And then there's different other things like temperature regulations in the US and so on. So yeah, I was just thinking how the reason I searched that, because I had this thought like, oh, if there's a demonic person being born every time there's a natural disturbance, then perhaps there's always a natural disturbance somewhere on the planet, right? Because in Kali Yuga, there's a lot of that energy of souls that are wanting to be at the center. Demonic really just means opposed to the divine, right? Wanting to be, it's all about me and wanting to enjoy my world and make it. It's all about that. So that, Prabhupada says, in the present age, the number of demonic people is increasing. Therefore, natural disturbances are also increasing. Okay. So text number 5. Yeah.
There blew winds which were most uninviting to the touch, hissing again and again and uprooting gigantic trees. They had storms for their armies and clouds of dust for their ensigns.
Very poetic, right? Storms for their armies. What was the comment you had?
What about unnatural disasters? Are those also indications of like if a war started?
Oh yeah,
or like
yeah,
attack or
yeah. Those are also commonly equated with the disturbances among the human population, and also the cruelty towards others. So the Prabhupada would often say that wars are a byproduct of cruelty towards the animals, right? The slaughterhouses and things like that. So we're all contributing to the world we live in with our consciousness and our attitudes. Okay, text 6. I think it's your table.
The luminaries in the heavens were screened by masses of clouds, in which lightning sometimes flashed as though laughing. Darkness reigned everywhere, and nothing could be seen.
7. Yeah, you can just read again, or you can keep going. Everyone can read, so yeah.
The ocean with its high waves wailed aloud as if stricken with sorrow, and there was a commotion among the creatures inhabiting the ocean. The rivers and lakes were also agitated, and lotuses withered.
Okay.
Misty halos appeared around the sun and the moon during solar and lunar eclipse. Again and again, claps of thunder were heard, even without clouds, and sounds like those of rattling chariots emerged from the mountain caps.
So imagine if you were there and you were hearing these strange sounds coming from the mountains, and then you're hearing thunder, but there's no clouds, right? It's all these things could be very fearful, fear-inducing, right? And you're on guard. Okay, next.
in the interior of the villages, she-jackals yelled portentously, vomiting strong fire from their mouths, and jackals and owls also joined them with their cries.
Okay, sounds like the beginning of a horror movie, right? Is this Halloween, right? Is it? Yeah, good timing.
Raising their necks, ducks cried here and there, now in the manner of singing and now of wailing.
Okay.
O Vidura, the asses ran higher and higher and hither and thither in herds, striking the earth with their herd hoops, and I cannot see properly. From
Yeah,
this
wildly
picture.
braying.
Wildly
So,
braying.
okay, thank you. And next, one more second.
Frightened by the braying of the asses, birds flew, shrieking from their nest, while cattle in the cowsheds, as well as in the woods, passed dung and urine.
Okay.
I was terrified, yielded blood in place of milk. Clouds rained pus. The images of the gods in the temples shed tears, and trees fell down without a blast of wind.
Okay.
Ominous planets such as Mars and Saturn shone brighter and surpassed the auspicious ones such as Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus, as well as a number of lunar mansions. Taking seemingly retrograde courses, the planets came in conflict with one another.
Marking these and many other omens of evil times, everyone but the 4 sage sons of Brahma, do you know who those are? Or Kumaras, who were aware of the fall of Jai and Vijay and of their birth as Diti's sons, was seized with fear. So they knew why things were happening the way they were happening, but everyone else was not sure and they're afraid. They did not know the secrets of these potents and thought that the dissolution of the universe was at hand.
These 2 demons who appeared in ancient times soon began to exhibit uncommon bodily features. They had steel-like frames which began to grow just like 2 great mountains.
Their bodies became so tall that they seemed to kiss the sky with the crest of their gold crowns. They blocked the view of all directions, and while walking shook the earth at every step. Their arms were adorned with brilliant bracelets, and they stood as if covering the sun with their plates, which were bound with excellent and beautiful
Girdles.
Thank you.
Prajapati Kasyapa, the creator of the living entities, gave his twin sons their names. The one who was born first he named Hiranyaksha, and the one who was first conceived by Diti was named Hiranyakashipu.
Okay, I'll read the last one. The elder child, Hiranyakashipu, was unafraid of death from anyone within the 3 worlds because he had received benediction from Lord Brahma. He was proud and puffed up due to this benediction and was able to bring all 3 planetary systems under his control. Do you remember those who are in the course on shadows? We talked about pride sometimes being coming from a really more of a narcissistic, or you could even say at an extreme, like a sociopathic or demoniac kind of energy, right? And that's what Hiranyakashipu. He had no fear, but it was coming from this perverted thing of feeling like he's the one who's got the whole universe under his control. So this real negative pride. Okay, so let's go to text 1 and let's do the Sanskrit together. The Sanskrit. Maitreya uvacha. Nishamyatma bhuva gitam. Karanam sankayochita. Tata sarve nyavartanta. Tridivaya divaukashaha. Let's read the word. Let's read the translation together. We'll just go straight to the translation. Sri Maitreya said, we can read it together. The demigods, the inhabitants of the, okay, I'll start again. Sri Maitreya said, the demigods, the inhabitants of the higher planets, were freed from all fear upon hearing the cause of the darkness explained by Brahma, who was born from Vishnu. Thus, they all returned to their respective planets. We're seeing a lot of contrast in this 19 verses between the fear that the world's experiencing and then the fearlessness or the freedom of fear that the demigods are experiencing, right? So we're going to be discussing fear in our lives. So purport, the demigods who are denizens of higher planets are also very much afraid of incidents such as the universe is becoming dark. And so they had consulted Brahma. This indicates that the quality of fear exists for every living entity in the material world. The 4 principal activities of material existence are eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. And what's another word for fearing? The Prabhupada. Yeah, Prabhupada often, he'll go back and forth on those. Sometimes he'll say defending. So basic, same thing, right? If I'm defending, it's because I'm fearful, or I may deny that. I might think, well, I'm just defending because I'm angry. But underneath that, there's like a self-protectiveness, right? The fear element exists also in the demigods. On every planet, even in the higher planetary systems, including the moon and the sun, as well as on this earth, the same principles of animal life exist. Otherwise, why are the demigods also afraid of the darkness? The difference between the demigods and ordinary human beings is that the demigods approach authority, whereas the inhabitants of this earth defy authority. If people would only approach the authority, then every adverse condition in this universe would be rectified. Arjuna was also disturbed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, but he approached the authority, Krishna, and his problem was solved. The conclusive instruction of this incident is that we may be disturbed by some material condition, but if we approach the authority who can actually explain the matter, then our problem is solved. The demigods approached Brahma for the meaning of the disturbance, and after hearing from him, they were satisfied and returned home peacefully. So the emphasis was approaching authority who can actually explain the matter, not just any willy-nilly authority, like, oh, let me go to my local, I don't know, the mayor, or the mayor might be a great person, I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, any authority and position that doesn't necessarily be the right person for us. It's somebody who can help us understand the higher perspective, kind of zoom out and see, like, this is what's actually happening. And then the other point here is that there's a common ground that Prabhupada's creating between us and the demigods here. Interesting, right? We all experience fear. He's saying every living entity, from the lowest to the highest, their external position, externally, lowest to the highest, they all experience fear. And he says fear of the darkness, right? I'm sure that a lot of you and your kids probably had that. It's kind of a common thing for children to feel afraid, and they want a little nightlight on or something, like what's under my bed, right? It's like a fear of the darkness. So it's a common experience, so we can feel like we're not alone in that. Even the demigods struggle with fear. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umaditamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I wanted to ask you, well, first, we're going to discuss fear, but first I was thinking about the people who enjoy fear, right? There's a type of fear that is actually like entertainment. And does anyone here like horror movies or scary movies? Okay.
I like scary video games.
Scary video games. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So not very many, but there are in the general world, there's a whole bunch of people who really enjoy the thrill of the scare, right? Is that part of it?
Yeah, I like jump scares, like I like paranormal activity style movies.
Okay, yeah. And jump scares means like things popping out, or yeah.
Yeah, like a loud noise, like in a movie theater. Like paranormal activity, that was actually the name of the movie. You can see it in the theater, everybody like scares everybody. It's like, ah.
Yeah.
It's just funny to hear people's reactions too. So.
Okay. So the amusement in not only experiencing it, but also the experience of others getting kind of scared or startled. It's yeah, it brings some entertainment or some pleasure.
Also, people enjoy like roller coasters, thrill rides, any adrenaline producing experience.
Yes. So rides at amusement parks, that's another thrill, right? And there'll be long lines for these kinds of rides. They're very common. Like, who here likes a roller coaster? Anyone? Yeah, quite a few. Yep. So that part where you're right here at the top and then you're about to go down, right? There's that moment of anticipation almost, and then it's like the drop, right? And so there's something in that experience that a lot of humans go for. They like that thrill and that potential threat, right? So I was thinking about that being, that's sort of everything that we experience in this world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. And even Krishna enjoys feeling fear, right? We're in the Kartik month. He enjoys being afraid of his mother, and not just faking fear, but actually running from his mom. And he knows he's going to get caught. He wants to be covered over by yoga maya so that he can experience that fear, right? You could say that little anxiety or whatever that that adrenaline rush that he was feeling when he's running from Mother Yashoda. And of course, this is the perfection of fear, and this is a whole other level that we can't quite understand, is when God puts himself in fearful places. But he enjoys that rasa, right? That taste of the fear, that adrenaline, that excitement. And so similarly, in this world, the perverted reflection is seen when we like to go to a scary ride or a scary movie and so on. So I wanted to just start with that. But then let's look at fear that's not entertaining now, okay? So what are the fears in our lives that we're actually consumed by? Think for a moment in your life, what is something that maybe you're afraid of, or that you know someone's afraid of, that you've heard people say they're afraid of, that they don't normally talk about? What are some of those fears? Yeah.
Not being able to mature.
Not being able to mature? Wow, yeah, that's a deep one, right? It's a deep fear. Someone's really contemplating deeply. So staying immature one's whole life, maybe, the fear of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Anartas.
Fear of anartas, yeah. And the fear of, it's interesting because we did a course here on navigating our shadows in bhakti, and that's basically the anartas, right? And so there's such a fear of those dark places that we don't want to have in us, that we might sometimes feel like we're running from them. Let's not look at them. And I had mentioned the other night that many of you raised your hand actually when I asked if you've ever had a dream where something or someone's chasing you and you don't want to look back because you're scared to see it. Like you might be afraid to look back, and so you keep running in the dream. And I looked up how many. This is a very common occurrence. I was doing some research on this. It's a very common occurrence for people to have dreams like that. A lot of people have those dreams, and there's a theory in the research that's done around dreams, is that people who are running from something in their dream are actually afraid of something in real life, or don't want to confront something in real life, and so it starts to unconsciously come into their dream of running from something. So that was interesting. So the stress of our waking life comes into our dreams sometimes. So what other things are fears? Kunti, you had your hand up.
I noticed a lot of people having fear of genuine connection.
Fear of genuine connection. Yeah. And what do you think might be under that? What? Fear of abandonment. Okay. So if so fear that maybe they'll be rejecting me, right? Or maybe I'll become really close to them, but then they'll reject me down the road, they'll abandon me. So those are big fears. And that makes it so that I'll just protectively not get close to people. Yeah. So, yeah.
Fear of losing one's self, like well-being or what, and in service to others.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So that's another big one. So almost like a merging experience, fear of that merging experience with others, so that I no longer have my own self.
It's more of like
a fear of who will take care of me if I give up boundaries, or if I like give of myself.
Yeah, who will take care of me? That's a really big one. Yeah. And that's like a root fear of being all alone in the world, right? Like not having anyone really care for us. Yes.
Fear of death.
Fear of death. Yeah. So either our own death or those of others, those loved ones in our lives. Yeah.
Lions, tigers, and bears.
Lions, tigers, and bears. Yeah.
And pain and suffering.
Pain and suffering. Yeah. So when you said that, I thought about all the mascots of football games. I was like, yeah, afraid of the other team. But yeah, in real life, in the wildlife, if we're camping or something, fear of actual animals or how those portray themselves. And the second part was what?
Pain and suffering.
Pain and suffering. Yeah. So fear of that. Like sometimes we want to avoid that so much in our life that we're running from that, like by trying to stay really healthy or fit, and there might be, not always, but sometimes the motivation for that is, well, I don't want to be sick and decrepit, and I don't want to have, like, what if no one helps me, and that kind of thing. So sometimes these fears are unconscious. They're not things that we're actually thinking, but they are motivators. Yes.
My drama teacher in high school said the only natural fear man has is of the unknown. So that kind of like sums up everything.
Yeah. So fear of the unknown. Yeah. And some people get a thrill with that, and some people are deadly scared of that, right? So depending on our personality, some people love the unknown and the thrill of it, and some people are terrified by it. Yes.
But general fear of change.
Yeah.
People were comfortable in their comfort zone. So any possibility of change is scary.
Fear of change. Yeah, that's a big one.
Isolation.
Fear of isolation. Yeah. Again, kind of coming back to that fear we've heard several times, the abandonment one, and then fear of no one helping or being all alone, and isolation. It's like that loneliness place, right? The fear of that. Of also, it kind of goes to this root fear of realizing how tiny and fragile I really am in this experience, in this material world, right? It's like, I'm very vulnerable. Yes.
Hell, fire, and brimstone.
And do you want to add
eternal, like suffering eternally after death?
Yeah, so that's a big one, and it's often shows up in religious contexts, right? Fear-induced service. I better be a good, religious person, otherwise I might suffer in these fearful ways. And again, it can be like a motivator, but it's sort of in a dysfunctional way. And a lot of people leave religions because they don't want that to be their motivator.
I was just thinking about Enneagram and how Enneagram points out like core fears for certain personality types, and that can really expose it.
Oh yeah. So the Enneagram, the personality structure of the 9 basic types, right? So some of you might know that one. So the each type has their core fear. So sometimes it's helpful to understand our personality with these models so we understand what the core fear is so that we can work on it. Yes.
Facing death or almost death.
Okay, yeah, so facing death or almost death. Okay, so who here has had a close call in traffic? Have you ever had a close call? Okay, well, good, not some of you, but not everyone. Oh my goodness, yes. So if you've ever been in traffic, and I'll give you an example. This is years ago, and I still remember it, like in my body. So I was moving a lane over, and I didn't see that a large truck had was off on the side, but was pulling back onto the road and was like pulling right into where I was going, right? One of those giant trailer trucks. Yeah, and so in that moment, I quickly swerved back, and it was okay, but it was such a moment of a feeling of close call, right? Like, oh my goodness, if I had just not noticed, I would have been smithereens. And so, yeah, those close calls can really bring up fear. So, okay, so we have all these fears, and in this material world, I just want to briefly mention, I looked up just this month, they released a study on what Americans fear the most in 2025, just a few days ago. So it was a survey done through through Wilkinson College, and it was on a national level. They did a survey of people. So top 10 fears of 2025 in America. So the first one was corrupt government officials. Number 2, people I love becoming seriously ill. Number 3 was economic and financial collapse. 4 was cyber terrorism. So they're talking like bigger, right? It's like bigger fears, societal fears. Number 5 was people I love dying. And then there was the US becoming involved in another war, like another world war, pollution of drinking water, Russia using nuclear weapons, pollution of oceans, rivers, and lakes, and the government tracking of personal data. Okay, so you can see here that there's a lot of fear on a societal governmental level, right, that people have. And we're going to talk about navigating fear now. And the first thing that is helpful, and it's actually mentioned in this study, is that people's fear gets aggravated by what? What inflames those fears? Other people's fears, yeah. The news, and especially sensationalized news. And nowadays, everything's sensationalized because people are, media platforms are trying to create little thumbnails and things that capture you, like the world might end in 26 or whatever, like that kind of sensationalized thing, because they know people will read those. So there's a lot of that on YouTube and on other media platforms. So when we're reading things that cause anxiety, it just builds our own, right? We're already maybe a little skeptical or fearful, and then we read other things like, We hear that somebody in Gainesville was robbed, and now I'm filled with fear that I'm going to be robbed, right? So it's kind of a building up. So one of the first things to do in navigating psychological fear is to try to avoid fear-inducing situations and reading about things that are going to cause that inside of us, right? So being careful what we consume. And just like we talked about with the other shadows that we're running from, do you remember what the main things we do to help? What were the core things? I'll tell you the first one. The first one is stop and observe. Observe it and recognize I'm the spirit soul. I'm actually not afraid, but this fear is there in the mind, in the brain, and in my body. And I'm just going to be, for a moment, I'm going to step back and try to observe it. With what? With hatred and judgment? No, right? With kindness and compassion. There's a part of me, right? It's not really me, but it's a part of this conditioning that's very afraid. And so if I was, what would I tell someone who was very afraid? Let me tell myself that, right? Try to encourage myself. And then seeking shelter. And what did the purport say? Seeking shelter from, they sought the shelter of authority who could actually explain the matter to them and solve their problem or their issue. So seeking authority from those who are not afraid or who have higher perspective on the fearful inducing situation, who can give us actual guidance and support spiritually, and who can remind us that actually you're never going to be touched by this material existence. We're so enwrapped in this, science fiction movies. They'll have like, oh, you're in a vat somewhere, but you're plugged into this world and you think you're actually in reality and you're so invested, right? And you're having these experiences and you think it's you. That's kind of our condition here in this world. We think it's us going through it. And we're so identified with the body and mind and the experiences of those moments that scare us that we forget, actually, I'm an eternal soul that can never be, what does Bhagavad Gita say? Can never be withered by the wind, right? And we heard the lotus flowers were withered. Do you remember that? One of the things in the inauspicious signs was the lotus flowers are withering. But the soul can never be withered by anything, by the wind. What else? Can never be burned by fire. And there are fires happening in the world right now. And somewhere, someplace on this planet, there are people afraid because there's wildfires and what am I going to do? But the soul, the real us, can never be harmed by fire. What else did Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Destroyed by weapons, right? Can never be destroyed by weapons. Nothing can cut it. And I think there's another one. Moistened by water. Yeah, and moistened sounds very kind of innocent, but I think a lot of people have fear of drowning, right? It's also a common human fear of drowning. So the soul can never drown. It can never be inundated by water.
It said somewhere that it's never born and never dies.
Yes. So also in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says the soul is never born and never dies. So the common fears, we heard two of them at the top of the 10 list were people and my loved ones getting sick, getting unwell, and my loved ones dying. There's a fear of that. And also people are afraid of their own death. And oftentimes they just don't think about their own death. But if they were to think of it, it would be scary. So the soul is never born and never dies. So what a relief to remember that. So if I'm scared, even just remembering that the Bhagavad Gita exists there, even if I don't want to grab it and I don't want to look at it, whatever, just remembering this knowledge is there and it's radiating through this material existence, reminding me that nothing here can harm me. Nothing negative can come to pass on the soul. The soul is just moving through this world as kind of a passive observer because it's covered so much by the conditioned layers. So there are many poetic ways that describe the condition of us in this world. One of them is that we're like a little drop of, life is like a little drop of water on a lotus petal. And we hear that in the song Bhaja Huriyamana. So Kamala Dala Jala, right? Life is like a little drop of water on a lotus petal. It's very waxy, those leaves. So at any moment, a little wind or a little, an animal or a frog could jump on, whatever. Something could happen to that flower and the leaf, and then the the drop is tottering there, and it can just come off. So our precarious situation in this world, being reminded of that by scripture is not meant to instill deep fear and terror. That's not the purpose of it. What is the purpose of those reminders? Yeah.
To help us to seek shelter in Krishna.
Yeah, to help us seek shelter in Krishna. So to redirect and to wake us up. So for example, if you're in a situation where, let's say you're up in the ashram and all of a sudden there's a fire going on, hopefully that never happens, but there's an alarms, but you're in such a deep state of sleep, you haven't really heard it, and your roommate wakes up and is seeing the smoke coming up anyway. But imagine you're in a situation where there's a threat coming and you don't know it, and your roommate takes your shoulders and shakes you awake. Wake up, wake up, wake up, right? And it seems so violent, and it seems so like, why would you put fear in that person? Just let them relax and sleep. Why are you, right? It can, from a material perspective, the words of the sadhu and the shastras can feel like, oh, you're ruffling my feathers. You're, impacting me on a way that I don't want to be. I want to be in denial. I want to just be in this dream. But actually, it's an act of great kindness. If you didn't wake up your roommate, that would be an act of great harm, right? So, yeah, just remembering that these when the sadhus and the shastras speak urgently about our precarious nature in this world, that at any moment we could die, that is to inspire us to look towards what's real. Let me break this illusion. Let me lift my eyes away from my phone, right? I've been drowning in like illusion here, that kind of thing. Let me wake up to the reality of what's happening, and also the reality of who I really am. I'm actually not going to die. Both things, right? So the urgency, but also the sobering and encouraging, hopeful message that I'm a spirit soul and I'm not going to die. So there's a nice quote here. This is another way to navigate fear, is to take shelter in Krishna consciousness. And there's a quote here in the Bhagavad Gita purport in 10. If you want to look it up later, it's in chapter 10, 4 through 5. Purport: fear is caused by our absorption in the illusory energy. But those who are free from the illusory energy, those who are confident that they are not the material body, that they are spiritual parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who are therefore engaged in the transcendental service of the Supreme, have nothing to fear. Their future is very bright. This fear is a condition of persons who are not in Krishna consciousness. Abhayam, fearlessness, is possible only for one in Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada's name, Abhaya Charanaravinda, right? It's part of his name, Abhaya Charanaravinda. Abhaya, fearless Charanaravinda, because of being at the Lord's lotus feet. Having taken shelter of the Lord's feet, I'm feeling safe, right? Sometimes I have a very vivid imagination. I sometimes try to dovetail that in my spiritual life. So when I'm in a fearful situation, I will imagine myself being I am really small, but I'll imagine myself being really small and tucked underneath the feet of the deities, like under Krishna's foot. You know how his foot is up there, and there's like a little arch where you can, and so I just picture myself, a little tiny jiva there, taking shelter under that umbrella of Krishna's foot. And so however you want to imagine, you go in your mind to Lord Nrsingadev, go in your mind to Govardhan Hill, go in your mind to a great sadhu. If you can't do it in person. If you can do it in person, literally go there, right? Take shelter. And another way to navigate fear is with prayer. So now I've approached you, and now what is a prayer that is helpful? There's not one answer, there's several. What is a helpful prayer when we're afraid? Yes.
Nrsinga Kavacha.
Yes, okay, so Nrsinga Kavacha. So early on in ISKCON, Prabhupada introduced the Nrsingadev prayers because he said, when we're in fearful situations, we can pray it. We can pray to Lord Nrsingadev and the Kavacha prayers also. Because Nrsingadev is the one who reduces all the fear, right? He's the one who takes away, with his nails, he'll rip apart all those things that are scaring us. He will give us shelter. And he helps us, we can pray on a physical level to Nrsingadev, please help me, my body and mind are in a precarious situation now. And also help me on a spiritual level realize that what I'm scared of is actually not really fear-inducing. remind me of who I really am, right? So there's two prayers here. We might pray for the physical support of our physical, emotional support of our bodies. And we can also pray on a spiritual level. What else? What other prayer might we have when we're scared? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So Narayan Kavacha. What's a prayer? What's a personal prayer that you can offer with your words? What's a prayer that can come to you with your English words to the Lord? Yeah.
I often will pray to, if anything, let me remain in remembrance. Let me always just remember.
Yeah, okay, so that's a really nice one. Let me always remain in remembrance, despite the coming and going of the fear-inducing situations. Let me always remain in remembrance of you. That's really nice. Anything else that you like to pray? So one thought I had is we can pray to, as you mentioned, we can pray the prayers of the acharyas or of prayers from scripture, right? The kavachas and the different beautiful bhajans of the Vaishnava acharyas. When we're praying with our own words, we can pray for a change in perspective. That's one thing. Please help me not be scared of this anymore. Like, please remove this fear from my heart so I'm no longer drowning in it. Yeah.
To remove the obstacles in the path of devotional service.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, so please remove the obstacles in my path. Another one is please increase my spiritual consciousness so that I'm not so easily distressed, right? Another one is please help me to trust you. If I'm struggling in trust, please help me to trust you. And again in the stories with Krishna, we hear devotees running to Krishna, 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 Pahimam, Krishna, help me. That's just plain old help me, right? But with Krishna at the forefront, Krishna, help me. And it looks like Uttara running to Krishna when she was, her child in the womb was being threatened by this weapon, Parikshit Maharaj, right? And she was running to Krishna, 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 help. It looks like the residents of Vrindavan who were about to be inundated by Indra's wrath on the storms, running to Krishna, Krishna, help us, right? Or when there was a forest fire, Krishna, all the cowboys run to Krishna. They run to Krishna with everything. Anytime there's a fear, they run to Krishna. And there's a beautiful prayer that we all know. Krishna, 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 hey, right? And there's one part of that. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshamam. So that means protect me from these fearful situations. So when Lord Chaitanya was going from Bengal to Vrindavan, he was going through the forest there was wild animals. He was actually singing this prayer. Krishna, 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 hey, right? And that's a prayer that we can use when we're going in scary places. And also Nrsingadev prayer, of course. So what is I want to ask you a question. Can fear be dovetailed in Krishna consciousness? And if so, how? Fear of Maya. Yeah, so redirecting our fear to, instead of maybe the things I'm currently, let me try to be more afraid of Maya. It can be a productive, healthy fear. Prabhupada would say you're not so scared of Maya, which is the problem. So let me be more afraid of that. And that way I'm consumed less in the other things. Yeah.
Lord Nrsingadev is supremely terrifying, so we can have transcendental fear and move on reverence.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, so appreciating the scary part of Lord Nrsingadev, right? And feeling that fear in a positive way, with the awe and reverence. Yeah. Awe-inspiring, Lord. Yes.
Dusasan's disrobing to Draupadi, she finally raised her hand as she was trying to hold her sari, but she ultimately raised her hands in fear that, my dear Lord, you are exclusive shelter to me. Now you can do whatever you like. But she was very fearful.
Yeah.
Because in front of the royal court.
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful image, that image of a devotee when they there's an acceptance that I can't do anything to help myself. I need to only surrender, right? Arms up. That's part of when we're raising our arms in kirtan, it's like, Krishna, here I am, I need you, right? It's like expansive feeling of surrender when we raise our arms up. So thanks for sharing that. Yes.
Fear of not having association.
Yeah.
Like having to move to a city that there's no.
Yeah, so that's a great way to dovetail our fears to be to replace it with this fear of, oh, I don't want to ever lose the devotees association. So what can I do to avoid that? Thank you. Yes.
There's a class of people who come to God out of distress. So if it wasn't for it, they wouldn't come.
Yeah, that's a great one. So yeah, so one of the ways that people come to Krishna is because of fear. So that fear was used by them to come closer to God. So another thing is, here's what I'm going to leave you with this thought, and maybe you can do it as homework if you like. Think of something in your life, an activity or a situation that you're a little scared of, a little afraid of. And the way to transform it is to see if you can do it for Krishna, right? And I mean, and again, this is not just, I'm not talking about moving towards things that are in Maya. I'm not talking about, oh, I'm scared of that bar over there, so I'm going to go do that. No, I'm not talking about that, right? I'm talking about a healthy service that we could do, but we're not doing it because we're scared, right? There's fear. For a lot of people, public speaking is a fear. This is an example, right? So if I step out of my comfort zone and I think, okay, I'm going to do some speaking for Krishna, or I'm going to go speak to maybe I have social anxiety and I'm going to go and talk to somebody about my journey in bhakti, or ask them about them, and just make a connection with another jiva in this world for the purpose of spiritual connection. Then I've taken that fear I've now added an element of Krishna to it, and it's going to transform. So there's two things. On a psychological human level, what's happening is when I face my fear, there's that expression, feel the fear and do it anyway, right? So I feel the fear and I do it anyway. What happens psychologically is it builds resilience. And it allows me to now, I'm going to try something even more. So I talked to one person and went, okay, now I'm going to talk to two people, right? I'm going to go put myself out more. So it's building that confidence on a human level. Spiritually, what it's doing is it's giving us empowerment. Why is that? Because when I put myself in a kind of a risky situation for Krishna, and that looks different for each one of us. For some of us, it might just be saying hi to somebody, right? It might be something simple like that. But there's nothing too small, right? Because if it's scary to us, then that's meaningful. So if I do something a little bit out of my comfort zone for Krishna, in that moment, I get to take shelter. I get that experience of, oh my goodness, no one else is going to carry me here. This is me and Krishna. Krishna, you have to carry me now. I'm scared. I'm going to go do this talk, or I'm going to lead this kirtan, or I'm going to do this service, or I'm going to take up a new leadership position, or anything that's threatening or anxiety provoking. And I'm going to do it for you, Krishna. So now you have to use me as an instrument. You have to make me dance, Prabhupada said, right? Make me dance like a puppet. And when we're in that mood, then you'll feel this incredible empowerment that comes. And it's actually quite exhilarating, feeling like Krishna is carrying me now. It's no longer just me, right? It's Krishna's carrying me. And I can just share on a personal note that I've experienced this a lot in sharing, like giving classes or the course that I recently taught. I shared with you that was actually, it was out of my comfort zone. It was a stretch for me and it wasn't easy. I had anxiety pretty much every week before those courses. And or just giving class, I have some anxiety around that. So even though I've done it a long time, it's still every single time there's this surrender that I have to go through in order to do it. And I go, Krishna, okay, I've done my, thinking about the subject and I've prepared, but it's up to you to use me as an instrument for you. And when I go into that place, then I feel something shifts. It's no longer about me anymore. And then suddenly I'm being guided, and it feels quite incredible, right? So these moments where we're scared are actually the greatest gifts to us because they allow us to feel that trust in Krishna, right? And I know that for each one of you in your own life, you've had those moments of stepping out of your comfort zone for the Lord and feeling that reciprocation, right? So it resonates, right? You've experienced that. And if you haven't yet experienced it, then you need to brainstorm what's a little scary for me to do for Krishna, and let me do that, and let me pray and see what I experience from Krishna carrying me. Okay? So any question or comment? Yes.
Maybe the most iconic instruction of all in all our Vaishnava literature, Krishna is telling Arjuna, surrender to me, I'll protect you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. In the Nectar Devotion, Prabhupada talks about how suffering we're experiencing now is a result of our past sinful activity. But at the same time, we have quantity of sinful reactions that are lying in seed within our heart, and someday they're going to fructify. And I would posit that all the fears we've mentioned, fear of death, disease, loss, isolation, loss of loved ones, all these are things that at some level we know are within our heart, and someday they're going to fructify. But what does Krishna say? He says, I'll protect you from all these sinful reactions. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, just hearing those words is so powerful, right? Krishna's reminder. By turning to him for shelter, we don't have anything to fear. He'll take care of it all. So thank you for adding that. Yeah, that's really the culmination of the Bhagavad Gita. Don't fear, because here I am. I'm here for you. Yes.
As you discussed in the beginning of the class, in college progress, there are so many natural calamities have been taking place constantly. It's very unfortunate. The top leaders of the world, they do not know the root cause of it. So what's your message to them and how?
Yeah, well, it's not really my message, but it's the message of, Krishna and Prabhupada, is that the only peace formula for the world, actually it's in Bhagavad Gita, the peace formula. Bhoktaram Yagitatasam, I think it's that verse. The peace formula is that from the highest planet, this whole place is a place of misery, but when we prioritize Krishna as the one who receives our offerings, our love, then that creates a world of unity and peace for everyone. Right? Krishna, that's why in this verse in the purport at the end it said, not in this purport, but in the one I read you, it said at the very end, Abhayam, fearlessness is possible only for one in Krishna consciousness. And for that, we're not talking sectarianism here. We're not saying only for the Hare Krishnas. We're talking about those who have actually recognized that they're humble servants of God, right? Then that fearlessness is allowed. Fearlessness is granted. So did you have something? Okay, one more comment.
Breakfast is supposed to come inside.
Oh, okay. Is anybody afraid they're not going to have breakfast?
I want to share with Bhakti-Yasa Maharaj. She breaks down the source of fear. It says, the soul is eternal by nature. Fear is not adjunct or natural conditional. But when the soul comes to the material world, it gets the material body, which is temporary. And as soon as the soul comes to it, the first emotion is fear. First thing that happens, because we start to identify with the temporary body. Just like if you watch a scary movie, you identify with a person who's been eaten by a monster. Same way, the soul is stuck in this body, sitting in this movie theater, watching this birth, death, old age, disease. And it identifies with that what's happening on the screen of our mind. So if we know the source, that source of all our fears is just identification with the body.
Yeah.
We can keep the self-analysis. Okay, if I have any fear of anything, that means that simple principle of the Sevanada's body is simple, but yet it's so important. And to come to it takes ages and decades of practice.
Yeah. And continually checking in how the barometer, right? Fear becomes the barometer for us. To the extent that I'm afraid of my condition here in this world is to the extent to which I'm not remembering that I'm actually not this body and Krishna is my protector, right? Those things. So we can check in with ourselves and see. So thank you all for sharing, and I hope that you will feel fearless today and try to step out of your comfort zone for Krishna and see what happens. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.